The scariest scene in this movie is probably one of the scariest things I've seen this year. It's still disturbing me weeks after watching. If you've seen it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
I agree. The real metaphor for this movie is that Aunt Gladys is a gun being kept in Alex's house by his parents. I'm so serious.
I didn't love the fact that the ultimate evil in this society is an old woman's desire for youth.
I enjoyed how attractive Josh Brolin was in this movie, but I would have still loved to see Pedro Pascal play his character Archer.
Pedro Pascal did not need to be in this movie.
There's nothing this movie did in terms of Aunt Gladys that Glenn Close and Lee Daniel didn't already do in The Deliverance last year. And Julia Garner's hair was reminding me of Indomie. It's this,
It's the
and you're listening to It's Really That Deep.
we have takes on everything you're watching.
Dee, what have you been watching? What have you been up to?
I watched Love Island Reunion. I also watched Together, which we're going to discuss. And yeah, unfortunately, didn't get around to much more than that. I just have a massive backlog right now. How about you?
I've been watching Peacemaker, James Gunn show with John Cena. Season 2, I shockingly like it a lot. I caught up on a lot of season 1, and I'm watching season 2. I'm really into it. Then I watched a lot of these movies back to back. I watched Weapons and Together within hours of each other. And unfortunately, I watched the Love Island reunion. Today we're talking about Weapons, a 2025 American mystery horror film directed, written, produced, and co-scored by Zach Cregger. Why are we discussing Weapons, Dee?
I saw a lot of discourse going on regarding weapons and a lot of articles saying that it's a good movie. In general, it's been a good year for horror, and I was really excited to watch it. How about you?
I heard that Pedro Pascal was supposed to be in this movie with Julia Garner. And I was like, I'm sad. Then I started seeing all the memes and all the imagery of the kids with the triangular arms. And I very intentionally stayed away from anything about it after that. I did get a bit of a spoiler that it might have something to do with the school shooting allegory, but that was it.
Weapons takes place in Maybrook, Pennsylvania, and it tells the story of 17 children who randomly go missing at exactly 2:17 a.m. from one third grade class at a school. Only one child from that class didn't go missing, and that was Alex. Suspicion quickly falls on their teacher Justine, and almost a month later, the principal Marcus places her on annual leave. She's completely shunned by the community, demonized as a witch, and she relapses into alcoholism and begins a reckless affair with her ex Paul, who's now married. Des, was Weapons good, bad, or mid?
I think I'm going to shock you, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say here. It was mid.
Okay.
It was mid. Mid, borderline, sometimes I debate about it in my head. Was it even bad, maybe? But I would say it was mid.
Interesting. Okay. So for me, I thought it was a good movie. I do think it was overhyped. So let's get into the themes. First up is school shooting.
So to me, I know there's been lots of conversation about what is this movie really about, which I think is part of the reason I've gotten a bit irritated with it. Because many times it felt too much like a movie that is too aware of the potential internet discourse that's going to follow it and is planting things to see that without any intention for real thematic follow through. And I really dislike that in modern filmmaking. It is clearly an allegory for school shooting. I've seen that the director, Zach Cregger, he's gone back and forth. One day he says, oh yeah, it is. The other day he says, no, I have no idea why you would think that. Even though I had a giant AK-47 above the house where the kid was holding multiple kids from his class in. To me, it is a school shooting allegory because of scenes like that. And I would even go further and I would say that the aunts, the great aunt Gladys that is in the house, I read her as a symbol for a gun that's in the house.
Oh wow, interesting.
You didn't see that coming, did you? In fact, I was surprised coming out of the movie that I haven't seen a single person say that. I've seen lots of different people's takes on how you could read this as a school shooting allegory, and I've seen people suggest what they think and Gladys represents. I've seen people say abuse. I've seen people say family secrets. I've seen different things, but I haven't seen anybody say that she's a gun. She's a gun in the house.
That's crazy to me.
She is. That's what she is, right? So it's a thing that a lot of school shootings that happen is because some kid gets access to a weapon in his family's home that is not being properly controlled, or the boundaries between it and the child have not been set clearly by its parents. And Gladys comes into the house one day. The dad is saying all sorts of stuff about it and telling him about how he needs to navigate around her, but he doesn't put in the right steps to protect his son from her and her influence properly. And ultimately, he ends up being used by her to take away all the children in his classroom. She is the gun.
So you think Alex is the equivalent of a school shooter in this movie?
Oh, 100%. Okay. Why else do they keep on showing us that he's being bullied and isolated? Why else do they keep showing us that the dad, who, Archer, who is played by Josh Brolin very attractively, he is trying to get his kid back? Why do they show us the kid at the end? And why do they show like this sense of guilt, right? Is because that kid has been terrorizing him in school. He feels isolated. That's why they keep on showing his teacher, Justine, is trying to reach out to him. But they also show that the school systems in place kind of stop her from doing proper
safeguarding
of a troubled kid. And he loses it one day. And he takes all their lives. That's how I read it. And that's why at the end, he still ends up controlling a lot of these people. And they keep it ambiguous exactly like who is still able to speak and who is still able, like who still has their consciousness. And that's where this whole metaphor loses me in general, because I think that by the end, it all kind of collapses in on itself no matter how you interpret it. But that's how I read it. I don't think that's actually the objective take, because I haven't seen anybody suggest that, including the director. But that is literally how I was watching that film.
Okay. Wow, that's really interesting. I guess that's the beautiful thing about film, isn't it? Everyone can have their own different interpretations. You're right. I think you're the only person who I've heard have that opinion. But to be fair, although I don't agree with your outcome, a lot of the logic and the reasoning behind it is very similar to my take. So for me, I don't think this movie is about school shooting. It's really annoying me that people are saying it is about school shooting. I had only seen Zach Cregger say that it isn't about school shooting explicitly. I'd never seen him kind of flip-flop about it. But now that you're saying that, that might change my opinion a little bit. I read this movie as exploring a number of different themes. But if we want to go with the dialogue around what does Gladys mean, what is Alex's character trying to depict here, I think Gladys is the symbol of either an addiction or an abuser in the house. And so I read Alex's character as a symbol of or I read this movie in general as a allegory for how we as a society fail vulnerable children. So when you have children like Alex who have an abuser in the home, whether that's their parents or their whoever it may be, in this case it's his aunt, the way how, as you mentioned, Justine is not able to do the safeguarding she needs to do. The school gets in the way because of the complicit behaviour of Marcus, the president of the school. I just felt like people jumped the gun with the gun symbolism, because I don't think the existence of an AK-47 alone with the 2:17 ratio on it is enough to indicate that this is a school shooting movie for me. And maybe it's because...
So what does that indicate?
Because Archer, the father, has a military past. And this gets on to another point that I think this movie is addressing, which really resonated for me, probably because of my own personal experiences. And that is the depiction of grief. And this is one of the reasons why I started to love this movie really, really early on. So unfortunately, I have experienced a number of bereavements, and including ones that are sudden, right? When you go through a sudden bereavement, your brain can play tricks on you. You can become obsessive about what happened. And we see that he's desperate to assign blame to someone. And unfortunately for Justine, she becomes the vessel of that anger. So yeah, I thought that it was annoying for me to see people describe this as a school shooting movie, when I think if you accept that it's a school shooting movie, you completely miss the deeper themes that are going on here. And more importantly, the themes that are asking us. Absolutely. In my opinion.
I fully understand your interpretation of the film, and I think it makes sense. Cregger, am I convinced he was really going that deep with this movie? I'm not sure.
And let me tell you the reason why. Let me tell you the reason why I think he is, actually. And this goes to another one of our themes we have here around alcoholism. So like you, after watching the movie, I wasn't entirely sure what the message was supposed to be. I understand that they're discussing certain themes, but what's the actual message here? And when I went to go and look up Zach Cregger's opinions on this, the loss of his friend was a motivation behind this movie. And also because he says that he grew up with an alcoholic father. And so all those scenes where we see Alex being groomed effectively by his aunt, I think if you accept the interpretation that this is a school shooting movie, you have to kind of dismiss the power of that depiction. I think it's one of the most compelling depictions of grooming that I can think of in like off the top of my head right now. It was really, really, it resonated with me a lot.
This is the interesting thing about art. One of my main issues with this movie is I didn't care about any of these characters, and in particular, as terrible things were unfolding around them, none of them moved me. None. Not at any point in time. So, and I think if that doesn't happen to you while watching this movie, the movie can't work for you. But if it does, no matter all the other shenanigans going on, the movie will work for you, if that makes sense. So that kind of explains why you like it, and I think I don't. I don't dislike the movie. It's not. I don't think it's a bad movie. To me, it was just like a shrug film. I think this idea of analyzing grief, trauma, grooming, abuse, I've seen it done in a more interesting way, personally. And maybe I was just a bit pissed off at some of the wooey stuff that they were throwing out there for the first half of the film. And by the time they explain it by the end, I'm like, okay, you were just trying to get stuff to cut into a trailer and to go viral on the internet.
And that's fair, actually. That's fair.
And I just have very little patience for that. I've heard someone compare this with Us, and they said Us is basically the same thing, that Us is just throwing a lot of crazy things out there and then telling people, yeah, you can believe it's whatever you want it to believe. You can believe it's about immigration. You can believe it's about capitalism. You can believe it's about the downtrodden working class, but really it's not really about anything in particular. I don't agree with that criticism for Us, but I can clearly see it here. Now, that doesn't mean, like you said, that this isn't Zach Cregger's actual real life. He's not really pouring his real life story into that. And maybe my lack of those kind of stories very close and personal to me is exactly why I wouldn't feel it in the same way. But I didn't. I did enjoy the depiction of anger. Again, Josh Brolin's anger, I felt it. I thought Josh Brolin was probably my favorite part of this movie. Performed very attractively, like I said. His frustration at the fact that other people don't seem to be feeling this panic and rage that he's feeling, I did kind of feel that, and I understand that. And I know that I'm the kind of person where in my real life at work, one of the things that frustrates me most is when I feel like other people just don't feel the urgency of righting it wrong the way I do. I also thought like the more simmering anger that existed in some characters, like the cop Paul, was borderline terrifying to watch. Like his character scared the hell out of me. Like why are you so mad? I didn't like that character much because I felt like they built him up and then he died, and I was like, okay, so he's an angry, kind of corrupt, kind of violent cop. Okay. But I did see that theme of anger running through there. And I could see that Gladys, she's a character, but depending on how you read her, who is angry that this is happening to her and frustrated this is happening to her, and she's going to take it out on everybody, right? And in like insidious, dark, twisted ways. But again, it's like the trope of the old crone stealing little baby's youth to keep her alive. I was like, I guess. That's why I had to tell myself that she's a gun to make things more interesting in my head.
Is that where that came from? I think I may understand why you really didn't like this movie, in the sense that if you need to care for the characters in any sort of way, this isn't a good movie for you, because I think that the characters are deliberately unlikable. Even Alex ends up becoming like an abuser. Justine is a car crash. She's an absolute car crash. She doesn't have any boundaries, even though we're low-key rooting for her because she's trying to save this poor kid. And unlike anyone else, she's probably the closest person to him in this movie, actually, apart from his parents who are, bewitched. The characters are deliberately unlikable here. And I think it's because Zach Cregger, again, he's not in the business of trying to make likable characters here. He's trying to tell a story about society. And I think the whole point of it is so that hopefully all of us can be introspective and understand which part of these characters we emulate. Because, for example, I think a really powerful motif here, which is one of the more subtle ones, is the banality of evil. I think the character that displays this the most is Marcus's character. He's the principal. He's the one that's making decisions here, and yet he's refusing to do anything to investigate the circumstances around this child. His parents are no longer coming to school. He's walking into school instead of being driven into school. And there was just no attempt to do anything about that.
That is actually part of my problem. I don't see that as a good thing. That's a bad thing. It made no sense.
But
how is it possible that something this extreme happens?
Yeah.
And then you hear that the father of the same child randomly have a stroke. Yeah. You see no evidence of it, nothing. Yeah. And you just accept it.
Again, what? It doesn't make sense to you. Unfortunately, schools around the world are completely ignoring the signs when it comes to kids presenting with abuse. And I think that's what Zach Cregger is trying to do here. And I thought he did it. Yes, I can definitely see the critique about, okay, so the parents suddenly went missing, they weren't going to work, and nobody asked any questions. Completely agree, right? But again, I think if we understand that he's making a broader point here about how various societal systems fail vulnerable children, then I can forgive that kind of poor writing, ultimately.
Fair enough.
Not only does Gladys represent abuse in the home, I think the way how we see Alex's character evolve is a demonstration of generational trauma itself, right? So again, the movie is not trying to make us think that Alex is this completely innocent victim. Of course he is a victim, but as we see, he goes on to become the witch. He's learned from Gladys. He's seen her abuse through her powers. He's now learned the skill and he's using it for himself.
Did you say R. Kelly?
Basically, yeah. A lot of abuse. It's not even just that type of abuse, unfortunately. And again, that's the reason why I do have to give this movie some credit. Now, as much as I enjoyed the work of Zach Cregger's, and I will be looking out for his work from now on, I really did enjoy this movie. I do feel robbed for Jordan Peele. I feel it. I wish that we were able to see Jordan Peele take on this movie.
I think this is my problem. I think this film smelled too much like white straight man to me. And if a queer man, a woman, a person of color had been the one that directed this film, would have engaged me better.
And I can see that. Because throughout the movie, I was thinking to myself, and I think Zach Cregger has spoken explicitly about the fact that he's been inspired by Jordan Peele. It's like he got so close, but not close enough. You needed some other thing, and that's the reason why it's a good movie for me. It's not excellent. And on this point, I need people to stop comparing it to Sinners. We'll get into the ratings shortly.
Sinners.
People are saying this has beat out Sinners, and of course it's done great at the box office, so now people are feeling emboldened to make these sorts of comparisons. It's not close to Cinemas, in my opinion.
Let's be serious.
But it's a good movie.
Let's be serious.
It's still a good movie.
I can rewatch Sinners 100 times in my lifetime. I'm not sure I'm going to rewatch this movie. Maybe I will once. And to be fair, it's one of those movies that a rewatch might suddenly change my mind. That does happen to me a lot. But I'm not eager to race to do that. Whereas with Sinners, I can watch it like 3 or 4 separate times and be entertained by it and think more about it. How did you feel about the technical aspects of the film, the writing, the acting, the scripts?
I definitely had my critiques. I definitely have my issues, right? So again, for example, I actually think there's a lot of plot holes in this movie. I think there's a lot of things that don't necessarily make sense. But again, I'm willing to forgive them because I see the broader message that's being portrayed here. Aside from that, with regards to the non-linear storytelling, I enjoyed it for like maybe the first 3 acts. And I didn't have any complaints at all. However, I think by the time it got to James's character, I was truly like, are you really going to show me this storyline again? Now, thankfully, at that point, it starts to kind of speed up a bit, which was very much necessary for me. With regards to the acting, I felt that there were strong performances in general. I was especially interested in Kerry Christopher's depiction of Alex. I thought he did a great job.
I liked his performance.
Yeah. And like you're going to be happy about this. I was also very much happy with Josh Brolin's depiction of Archer. I felt the rage. I felt the chaos. I felt his grief. Truly, he really convinced me of his grief in that, and I thought that was amazing.
Very attractively. Don't forget that.
Not for me. Julia
Imagine if it had
Garner.
been Pedro, because Pedro Pascal was supposed to be playing that character.
He
So if
didn't
I'm
need to
saying
be in
this
this
about Josh
movie.
Brolin, yes,
He did not
yes,
need to
he
be in this
did.
movie. He
Actually,
did
no,
not.
Josh did a great job. So I'm not saying he shouldn't have been in it, but if it was Pedro, I'd have been happy to see it before. It's because you haven't watched The Last of Us. If you watched The Last of Us, you understand the glory of watching Pedro Pascal when he's playing a person that will stop at nothing to find his child.
Mm. I think when it comes to cinematography and directing, I'll admit I don't think anything completely blew me away. I would say, yeah, nothing really blew me away. It's more the script that's working for me here. What I did like, of course, is the little stylized way that the kids run. I thought that was very powerful, and it's also a symbol because it looks like an arrow, which is another type of weapon.
Ah, weapons, I see. Cute,
Yeah.
cute. I have one big technical issue with this movie, which is that it's too dark. I know that these kind of horror movies, being dark is part of the point. Things that go bump at night is part of the point. I generally tend not to enjoy jump scare horror. When utilized properly, it can be good, but to me, some of the
Mm,
most intelligent and interesting horror movies happen in broad daylight.
mm,
If you're going to do the jump scare, things that go bump at night thing, you have to do it very well. And I think you
mm,
can film stuff in the dark but still have good lighting. It seems to be a lost art in commercial Hollywood these days. Everything refuses to light anything properly. And it was very annoying for me here. I was squinting multiple times.
mm,
Yeah, I just found the lighting to be irritating while watching this film. Thought the acting was pretty good overall. Julia Garner, she has a base level of acting quality that she never goes below. She didn't wow me that much in this
mm,
movie. I've seen her be more exciting. Even in Fantastic Four as Silver Surfer, she was more exciting than this.
mm,
But she was okay. Um, I thought the boy that was playing Alex was quite good. Like I could feel his kind of measured, I'm over it, and I am normalizing this horror that is happening to me slowly
mm,
pretty well. I thought that was good. The boy who
mm,
played the junkie, the addict character,
mhm,
James, he was all
mm,
right, even though, again, there was something about the side questing happening with people like him that was like, you are meandering. This movie doesn't need to be this long. The first 30 minutes to me were way too long and unnecessary. They could have been maybe 3 or 4 minutes of intro and we get into the plot. And some of the stretched out kind of character dives that they had for some of these people. After we finished diving into their character, I was like, oh, I still don't care anything more about this person. I
mm,
understand that great art doesn't have to have likable characters, but to me, it needs to have interesting characters. And
mm,
for a lot of these people, I wasn't interested in them the more time I spent with them. I was just kind of like, okay,
mm.
next.
I think it's because the characters, at least the way how I read it, I don't think the characters are really here to tell you about themselves as much as they are to tell you about a part of
How they feel.
society. They're supposed to display an ugliness in society, each of them. So, for example, with Paul, I don't like Paul at all. I can't stand him. But he's there to represent the corruption of one of the key systems in a society, which is law enforcement.
But couldn't that have been done in a more subtle, more artistically interesting, engaging manner than him just whiling out on the streets after getting stabbed in the face with a bunch of syringes by a junkie he ran down?
Some people aren't happy about his comment about AIDS in that scene as well, which I don't understand really.
I mean, the whole point of the character is that he's supposed to be kind of an asshole, so it's
Yeah.
not like they're presenting him as some kind of sympathetic person.
And also, AIDS is a pathogen, it's another type of parasite. So, again, it's adding to that theme of a parasitic
Oh,
energy. Of course, yeah. It's a parasitic energy in society.
just like a gun in a home. A gun in your house
It
is
depends
a
where you are.
parasite that is leeching on the energy in the house, and you're thinking that, oh, it's fine, I don't need to worry about that, it's just a little thing, but actually it is eating into you, and when it goes off, that might be the end for everybody. So
Hmm.
yeah, so I'm going to drag this metaphor that Gladys is a gun as long as I humanly
I do
can.
like it though. That's unique. I'm truly shocked. But I do, again, if you notice, our reasoning is very similar. It's
It
just that
is
we have different
similar.
outcomes.
Yeah,
Mm,
and I understand what you're saying about her representing abuse in the home that
mm,
isn't being addressed. And
mm,
of all the takes I had seen after I watched the movie, that was the one that made most sense to me.
mm.
So I agree. I get that. D, what would you give Weapons out of 10?
It's a 7 out of 10 for me.
Is it though? Is it really?
It is. Again, it's a good movie. It's not an excellent movie. It's not an excellent movie because I wasn't particularly blown away by the cinematography or anything like that. I did enjoy the character development though, in the sense that they're all very complicated. I didn't like any of them, but I understood what they were there to represent. Apart from poor Alex, of course. But even then again, he represents the perpetuation of abuse in society, so that's still an ugly thing. But it's not it was missing something. I do agree with you. It missed some additional seasoning in there somewhere. How about you?
It's a 5.5. I was like, should I give this a 6? Should I give this a 6? But I was like, this is not a 3-star movie. I know what a 3-star movie is. A 3-star movie is a movie that doesn't blow you away, but you feel like in all ways is competently done. So Weapons didn't blow me away, and it's mostly competently done, but I just had to knock off that 0.5 because I couldn't see a damn thing. And so so I can't give it its 3 stars. I have to give it a 5.5. I'm so shocked that I don't like this movie as much as most people, because all the reasons that people like it, I understand why in theory they would like a movie for those reasons. They just didn't resonate with me at all. But I don't think it is a bad or unwatchable film.
I liked it. I would say it's one of my favorites for this year, for sure.
Be serious. Be
No,
serious.
seriously.
No, be serious.
Seriously.
Be serious.
Yeah. And the reason why is because of the ambitious themes that are being handled here. In fact, I want to go back and watch some of Zach Cregger's other work.
Interesting. Does Weapons pass the Bechdel test?
No. No, it doesn't. And again, this is the reason why I can see your point of view. As much as I like this movie, it's still a movie written by a man, and a white man at that. It's not very culturally aware, and it's definitely not, it doesn't care about gender at all. In fact, there's one part of this movie I truly hated. You know the part I'm talking about? It.
Yes. The policeman's wife.
Oh, not even that. Let's go into that point first. I'll go into my one after. That means there's two.
You see, everything that involved this policeman, I kept on asking myself, why is this storyline happening? Why should we care? Why should we be buying in or invested in their relationship and the toxicity, and who is spiraling, who is causing who to break their sobriety? Is this all leading up somewhere? When, he basically cheated with her, I was like, okay, this must mean something greater. And then it all kind of climaxes with the wife who he had lied like a Nigerian man that he separated from, showing up from her work trip to come and try and smash a bottle on her head in a shop. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the only time in this movie the two women properly speak to each other, and it's because they're physically fighting over one of the worst male characters in the whole film. I was like, what the actual hell?
Yeah. Now, again, I think that particular scene, yes, I agree, it's a sign of misogyny, right? I think the reason why it exists, or at least what the director would say, is that we need to understand that, again, she's another unlikable character in this movie. And also we need to understand that Paul is cheating. We need to understand that Justine is like spiraling. And, even though she's basically being threatened with death here, she's still going to keep doing her mess. I think it's just to add to the chaos. But again, did we need that? No.
A cheating or disloyalty storyline can be well done, can be interesting. I have no problem with it. But what was not cliche about the way they wrote this out?
No. Nothing.
Everything about it was like standard. Man cheats, wife comes to come and run down the side chick. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess.
I agree.
Okay, so then what's the other thing? Yeah, go on.
It's when Archer goes to the family and there's a wife that answers the door, and Archer asks, "Can I see your security cam footage?" She clearly says, "No, I don't feel comfortable with that. Could you go away?" This man decides to hide out in the front and wait for the father to come home. So it's like, why wouldn't you accept that her no means no? Why are you waiting until her husband comes home as if he's a greater authority here?
Now, let me defend Zach real quick after all the slander I've had for him. I think that's important to tell you what Archer is and what he represents. Like you said, he has a military background. He's some kind of machismo guy. There's a reason he sees that gigantic, almost phallic gun above the house in his dream.
Yeah.
And he's also the father of the boy's bully.
Mm.
A lot of his toxic, and I hate to use this very like buzzwordy term, a lot of his toxic masculinity is being fed directly into his son, and
Mm.
that could be what is contributing to this toxic environment around Alex.
Mm.
And so they want to really, really drill it home that this man has issues with toxic masculinity. And when a woman says
Mm.
something, he's just like, okay, heard you, where's your
Literally.
husband? And that is there to demonstrate that to you very clearly.
Yeah. So that's interesting because throughout the movie, I was forgiving a lot of things because I could see the motifs here. But that particular scene didn't land well for me at all. I was
Mm,
really angry when I saw that scene.
that's so interesting.
Another gender related topic here is Aunt Gladys and the depiction of Aunt Gladys and what she represents. Okay, wasn't impressed. We don't need yet another old, quote unquote, unattractive or past her prime woman representing evil in society. Old women are not the evil in society. Please stop.
Let me tell you why I. So before this movie came out, I had seen so many pictures and images of her, and everybody talking about how frightening it was and how cool the design of her was. And I know lots of people are going to dress up as her for Halloween and stuff
Yep.
like that. I get it, right? But all I could think about was how the exact concept of her character and design of her character is almost identical to this Lee Daniels Netflix movie that came out, I think last year, called The Deliverance, starring Glenn Close, where there's a crazy scene where she's possessed and she looks exactly like Aunt Gladys. And she
Mm.
says to her little black granddaughter that I can smell your nappy.
Oh my God. Wow.
It's a very crazy movie. And mind you, this same character, Lee Daniel, said that every black community has a white woman like that, and she's a part of the community, and we embrace her. Anyway,
Okay.
that's a separate segue. But the point is, I have seen that exact crone like demonic character in a horror movie recently, and it was played by Glenn Close. So honestly, more legendarily done.
Mm.
So I wasn't gagging over it. Like I was just like, okay, so an old woman who maybe has had some garish work done on her face and does garish makeup and wears brightly colored wigs. So frightening. I'm like, okay, we've seen it before.
Mm.
What else do you have to say? I think this exact same story, right? And this exact same character, directed by a woman, would
Mm.
hit slightly differently because she would maybe go a bit more into what does it mean to become that as an
Mm.
older woman.
Mm.
Whereas here she's just used as a shock factor tool, in my opinion.
But
In terms
like,
of the visual parts, not in terms of what she thematically represents, which, like you said, is it can be read as covered up abuse in the home.
I just don't care for this idea that the ultimate parasite, if you like, in this society is a woman's desire for youth. It's not a woman's desire for youth that is leading to school shooting. It is not a woman's desire for youth that is leading to the ridiculous levels of child abuse that exist around the world. Please, like, that's the single thing I hate the most about the movie. I have to let it go in order to benefit from the other themes going on here, but I totally agree with you. I don't care for it at all. I don't think this movie cares about gender at all. It's quite disrespectful, actually.
To wrap up on my thoughts of whether or not this passes the Bechdel test, of which I agree it doesn't, and it is crazy how many movies continue to fail this very simple test. The only other scene I can think of where two women interact is when Aunt Gladys comes to the school for the meeting with the principal, and the receptionist is clearly very suspicious of her. And I think maybe she makes a passing comment to her that, oh, you can come on in, or something like that.
Oh.
But A, that receptionist is not named. B, whatever she's saying to her has to do with specifically the principal.
Mm.
And C, and Gladys never responds back to her, if
Yeah,
I remember
exactly.
correctly. So,
Exactly.
no, the movie, in my opinion, the movie fails the Bechdel test. Weapons fails the Bechdel test. Now we're going to do our Is It Really That Deep segment. The Mariana Trench is 6,000 fathoms deep and the lowest depth man has reached inside the earth. How deep is Weapons?
It's going to be difficult to answer this because I don't think it fully landed all of its themes, to be fair. But I did respect the ambition. And for that reason, I'm going to give it 4,000 fathoms deep.
Oh, I'll go even further than you. I'll give it 5,000 fathoms of depth
Oh.
because even though I didn't love this movie and I don't even necessarily agree with most people's interpretations of its themes, because I have decided to attach myself to this theory that this great aunt was a gun in that house this entire
Please.
time. That requires so many levels of delusion and depth that I have to accept that means that this is a deep movie. Y'all just
Wow.
don't get it. You guys will get it in 2065. Do you get it? Okay, so we're going to go through some letterboxd reviews for Weapons. George66 says, Jordan Peele, I completely understand why you fired everybody. D, what are your thoughts?
I do feel like we've been robbed. I'm not trying to be disrespectful towards anyone who worked on this film. I enjoyed the film. I just know that it would have hit so much harder. It would have been a spectacular movie if Jordan Peele got his hands on it. So I totally agree. If I was Jordan Peele, I'd fire all of them as well.
It's so interesting you say this because you didn't like Nope very much, even though I did.
No.
So your issues with Nope don't stop you from thinking that Jordan Peele would have made much more out of this film?
Of course not. I just because I didn't love Nope, but I loved his previous work. And I think this movie again is more in line with the Us, actually, as you mentioned. Someone's trying to draw that conclusion. I agree with you. I don't think this movie can stand up to Us personally. But because it explores, I think because the thematic depth is similar, let's say, in terms of the breadth and the seriousness of the themes being discussed, it does give me hope that Jordan Peele would have been the right one to address this, especially as you mentioned, because Zach Cregger is a white man ultimately. No shade. I think someone who's able to speak to intersectional themes and different ways that society can fail people would have been able to knock this out of the park in the way that Zach Cregger didn't. I feel like Zach Cregger, he produced a good piece of work. Jordan Peele would have produced a masterpiece. It's my honest opinion.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I would have liked to see what that is. One clear thing that he would have definitely done, which all of his movies have, and in fact it increases with each subsequent movie, is I think his version of this movie would have had a lot more flair and style. One of the things that makes me love Us so much is how it uses music and costuming. And apart from the Gladys makeup in this movie, the costuming was giving me nothing. I was very,
Yeah.
very scared of Julian Garner's Indomie fried hair. Very scared indeed.
Speaking of the
And not
hair,
in a
though, I
good
will
way.
say this movie isn't particularly scary, but that scene where Alex's mom goes to cut her hair, very, very scary. Very
I was
scary.
very scared. I was
Terrifying.
so disturbed by that scene. I agree.
I'm
That
still
was very well
disturbed.
done. Yeah, that was scary. That was bloody scary.
This comment from Letterbox from Sydney says, to me, this is a really great example of originality and provocation meaning very little if a film doesn't deliver on its presented ideas. There are so many intriguing dynamics in this town that are ultimately dead ended in the service of a crazy third act that people will hoot and holler about. But despite more sophisticated filmmaking after Barbarian, this feels even more fractured in its ambitions. What did you think?
I think this kind of succinctly summarizes how I feel about this. I kept on thinking there's a reason there's all this build up. You're trying to tell me something here. You're trying to link all of these themes together in a way that's coherent to me. And that coherence never came. And by the time we get to the end where it kind of turns a bit slapstick, which I don't mind, I can enjoy that in films. I was even more sure than ever that, oh, this movie is just supposed to be a discourse generator. You don't have a strict thesis that you are trying to pitch here. This is similar to my criticism of Sinners, but ultimately Sinners gets more points because I was more entertained during that journey. Now we're doing our third deep segment where we briefly discuss something we watched. We're going to talk about the Love Island USA Season 7 reunion, which was hosted by Andy Cohen and Ariana Madix. Dee, what did you think of the reunion?
To be honest, I didn't think the reunion was that interesting. I did watch it with on 2x speed as well as fast forwarding and skipping all the characters I don't find interesting. I will say with regards to Andrew Cohen hosting, it was a perfect choice. Andy
It really
Cohen is
was.
famous. He's famous for being messy. He knows this like the back of his hand. I'll get into some of the points where I thought he did an excellent job of pushing back on some of the characters when they needed to be pushed back on. And the shout out to Clark, who pushed back on him a couple of times when she needed him to be quiet so she could finish her point.
If anything, my main problem with this reunion is that these people were not matching Andy's energy enough. He came here ready for the best. Before this reunion, all of them had been saying, oh yeah, they have receipts. Oh yeah, they're ready to check this person. And they came there all scared of their
Dead, yeah.
followers and their fan bases on the internet. And it was just giving dead. It was giving quiet. It was giving neutered. There wasn't an audience, which I think was a bad decision. And Andy was ready to stir that pot, and these people were not ready to mix it up with him properly.
No, they didn't have the range. They didn't. Let's be honest, we're not checking for all of these couples. During that reunion, I was really there to hear Huda, Nicolandria, Ace, Chelly, Taylor, and I think that was about it. Everyone else, I just skipped them.
So you said you're here for the black people and Nick content, and you're not interested in anything else.
We'll get into. I don't even know that I would say I'm here for Nick, and we'll get into it. In fact, let's just do it right now. I didn't watch the season, really. I just kind of caught up with discourse and watched a few bits here and there. Something that you didn't tell me, Des. Why didn't you tell me? You mean to tell me that Nick is best friends with Taylor?
Oh, you didn't know that?
I did not know that.
That's his bestie. He even went to his hometown in Oklahoma, or wherever it is, to go and stay with him the other day. Because another thing, Nick is homeless.
Oh, but this is all starting to add up, isn't it? This is all starting to add up.
Yes.
My jaw dropped. My jaw dropped. So you mean to tell me the internet is standing, oh, Nicolandria, he's obsessed with her, blah, 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 but you're doing up besties with the man that embarrassed you on TV.
But
okay.
That's how they all were in this villa. They were all weird with their relationships.
All right. I'm just saying,
In fact, on the season, one of the most disturbing moments of the season for me was when, after Nick and Olandria had been fake dumped from their respective villas and Casamo, when they bring both of them back in and they send them back into the main villa, Taylor wakes up in the morning and he sees both of them there, and at this point he was partnered up with Olandria. He excitedly jumps on Nick and is hugging him and he's so grateful. Wow. And only after he has finished twirling around with Nick and being so happy to see him, kind of looks at Olandria and is like, hey, Olandria.
Well, let's talk about that point right there, because that was one of the more disturbing themes I got from this reunion. And I'm going to be a bit more serious than this series rewards, basically. Something I found really interesting was the fact that, for context, I consider men or women in general, anyone who lies about the truth of their intentions with someone or lies about their attraction to someone in order for some other kind of ulterior motive, I consider that to be a really deplorable behavior, even when it's on a TV show like this. So I was shocked to see Taylor come on national TV and be exposed for the fact that he claims he was never attracted to Olandria. Which, look, everyone has their own preferences. He doesn't have to be attracted to her. But how does he think she feels when you're on this TV show, you're sat next to another black woman, and you're saying, well, I just didn't find her attractive. Despicable. And no one's really getting into how ugly that behavior is. And we're expected to just sit in it and accept it because it's reality TV. Disgusting.
Wake it up, D. Wake it. And that's why I will never have any tolerance or patience for that man. Listen, I don't expect any individual person to have the weight of saving the world or saving black women. It's a waste of time to have that mentality.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have no interest in having patience for people who insidiously perpetuate very, very dangerous things about people. And even after they know what they have been perpetuating, even if it was unintentional initially, continue to do it. I'm very suspicious of those kind of people, and I have no patience for them.
I was kind of disappointed in Andy on that front, actually. I think Andy said, could you apologize or something like that? But I just don't think a lousy sorry is enough. I'm not saying that he needs to grovel or anything, but I don't think people understand the weight of how abusive that is. We all understand it when it's, for example, a spy or a police person who's lying about being interested in someone in order to, further their investigation. That's actually illegal, I think, in many places. But we're supposed to just accept it because it's reality TV. And the quiet part is we're supposed to accept it because Alandria is a dark-skinned black woman. Well, of course he's not going to be attracted to her because he's a light-skinned man, and that's the reason why he's gone for a buck.
Not only do I not think a sorry is good enough, I'm a person that in general doesn't care for vocal apologies. They quite literally mean nothing to me. I think it's a courtesy to do it, and I appreciate it when someone goes out of their way to do it, and I try to do it to people when I've wronged them too. But in terms of my own internal processing of wrongdoing, a spoken sorry literally means nothing to me. As in, I don't care about them. I don't think it says anything. The only thing that has ever mattered to me when you've done someone wrong is corrected behavior.
Your
That's
actions,
the only thing
yeah.
that really actually says anything about what you think.
Yeah.
Because if you continue to do it, even after you're jokingly saying sorry, it just shows that you still don't think you're wrong. And in the age of the internet we live in, performative apologies are a dime a dozen. They don't mean anything.
And if you look at the look on his face when he says sorry, it almost looks like when you tell kids, oh, you need to apologize, and they're like, okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's how he conducts himself in general, and that's why I have no patience for that man. In fact, we've spent enough time talking about him. Let's move on.
Let's move on. Speaking of men with deplorable behavior or questionable behavior, next up is Amaya and Bryan. Right?
Now, I have some controversial thoughts here.
Go for it.
Why is anybody shook? Is it just because I'm Nigerian? But I could see that scam from a mile away. It was quite obvious, no? Now, this is not me suggesting some other couples in that villa are not also scamming, yeah? But in those couples, I believe the scam is more mutual. Whereas, unfortunately, it looks like Amaya really fell deep. And even as you're seeing how she's crashing out now on social media over him, saying, oh my God, you broke my heart, you betrayed me, you lied to me, I told you I loved you. And I'm like, girl, are you okay?
No, they're not okay.
This man was an obvious scammer. When him and Zach were going back and forth, battle of who is the biggest scammer, I was like, this is a Spider-Man pointing at each other meme. You are both the biggest scammer. The only difference is one of them was more successful at it and he secured the bag.
But did you clock Zach though? Even Zach was like, you know what? I'm just going to be quiet because if I speak, I'm going to talk too much. That was the energy I was getting.
All of them knew the tea. They all literally saw what happened. This man never broke up with his actual girlfriend in the real world. They're back together now. I heard people saying that, oh my God, he cheated on Amaya with his ex. No, Amaya is the side. He told his ex, babe, I'm going to go get this bread for us. I'm going to sort us out. We don't have to worry anymore. She said, baby, you go do what you need to do. The crazy thing about this is they had sex in that villa. And I remember I found that so wild when it was happening because it was just 5 minutes after various men had tried to scam her after they had realized she was the most popular girl in the villa.
Yeah.
And I could see the brand scam coming from a mile away. And I was like, okay, listen, Amaya, you're on track to win this season regardless of who you pair up with. The best I can hope for is that you just pick whichever scammer of your choice and you keep it cute, peck him a bit, and you sail off to the sunset with your money. But then they got into the hideaway and these two people had sex and I was like, babe, do you know that this man is actually even into you? I wasn't even sure she was into him. I preferred it when I thought she was scabbing with him. But now that I realized she wasn't, I'm like, oh, this is kind of dark.
What's his ethnicity?
He's Dominican.
What did you guys expect? That's a Caribbean man. Don't you know what Caribbean men are like? I don't feel sorry for you. At this point, any woman that dates one of these men, I'm sure you've had a Caribbean woman tell you what they're like. Don't come crying when it goes wrong.
Okay? I think Amaya is Dominican.
But then that's even worse. You should know. That's even worse. What are you doing? But let's speak about the concept of the scamming men, because I have a theory. And mark my words, I promise you this theory is going to come true. I personally feel like we are in the golden era of the gold-digging man.
Clark it.
And I feel that reality TV shows are a really nice, microscope on that phenomenon. And the reason why is because, obviously, viewers of reality TV skew towards women and queer men and stuff like this, right? What that means is when the women come out, they automatically have a base who they can sell to in a way that the straight men don't. So this automatically sets up a dynamic where the men are incentivized to attach themselves to a woman that's going to have significant clout to where he can just ride her coattails. Yeah? Unlike with men, wealthy men or men with clout or men with status, they are warned from very young that you need to be careful of these gold digging women and the like, right? But it doesn't, no one's preparing wealthy women in the same way. And so what this means is men are finding themselves in a golden era where there's so much supply of women who are primed to be targeted because they haven't been warned about the fact that men can be abusive in a way that doesn't exist for a woman. And yeah, I just think all of these men, whether it's Bryan, whether it's Zach, whether it's the men we've discussed already on this podcast when it comes to that violence, they're just an illustration of this phenomenon.
Everything you said is facts. See, at this point, right, these viewers are all kind of deranged, and a lot of them are carried over from Big Brother Niger, so I blame them. And they want to spend their money on these people. So if these people want to come together and mutually scam these viewers, I support it. Where it gets very uncomfortable to me is if I get the hint the woman is lost in the clouds thinking she's found love. That's when it becomes very unfortunate for me. And sadly, I'm at a point these days in my feminism where I have very little patience for very dimly obtuse women. I can feel sorry for them, but I can't feel very angry on their behalf because I'm like, girl, this wasn't that subtle.
Let's talk about Huda.
I have controversial thoughts.
This was the first time I had seen the scenes with Huda very much making other people visibly uncomfortable in the villa. And if you go back and watch some of Andy's other reunions, he can be a lot more harsh than what he was towards Huda. And I could feel that he was holding back because he himself didn't want the backlash, which is crazy. I felt that people were making excuses for her. I felt that people weren't properly holding her accountable. And the worst part for me is she wasn't holding herself properly accountable. When she sees that flashback of her being really, rude towards other people, all she says is, well, I was unapologetically myself and that's all I can do. And ha ha ha, I'm going to therapy now. And thank God Andy does step in at one point and he says, well, so you think you've gone to therapy for 1 month and now you're suddenly different? And I was really happy you said that. But yeah, apart from that, it just felt like she's gotten away with her behavior and she's actually been rewarded for it.
Everything you said is objectively true, but here's my issue with the way we discuss Huda and how people on the internet are talking about Huda, and in fact how the Islanders themselves were discussing her on that reunion, which is that there's nothing that anybody is doing here that is not helping her. Everything I see about how people engage with Huda when they're angry at her seems like exactly how you empower this kind of person on the internet. It is reminiscent to me of the discourse around people like Yes Jules and Wo Vicky and certain other kind of these like BBL bandits type non-black women, where they know exactly what they're doing to try and get under the skin of certain people, not just black women but especially black women, and a lot of black women going up in arms to talk up and down the timeline about it doesn't actually in any way position those black women better or in any healthier position. And all it does is just give that person more engagement. And that person will demonstrate to you to your face continuously that they are not apologetic at all and they are feeding off of the engagement you've given them. I don't know if you saw this, but after the reunion, one of the things Olandria said to her when she was talking about her heartbreak, and Huda replied to her in what's in like an earnest way. Huda then made that the caption of her photo dump of her post from the reunion afterwards. Just to signal to her fans, I don't give a fuck.
That's crazy.
Because she doesn't. Because she doesn't need to. So as I was watching Shelly and Olandria really like unpacking how she made them feel, which they have every right to do, so I'm not trying to censor them. At the end of the day, you need to let out what is in your system. And I saw the days and days of discourse that continued. And I saw the conversation she had with Chris and people like that. I was just like, nothing that has happened here is going to incentivize this girl to change her behavior. Nothing. Yeah, if anything, it encourages it far more. So I'm just very wary of how we talk about these kind of people. I'm just like, I'm also very wary in particular about this desire for media, internet, to position these kind of women as foils to black women who are jealous of them. I'm not saying Olandria or Shelley are jealous of Huda. If anything, I think Huda was experiencing quite a lot of jealousy for Shelley. But what I'm saying is the way that these kind of dynamics are framed typically is that they have something to be jealous about. And unfortunately, even if you're pushing back on that, any form of engagement with this kind of stuff feeds into that narrative. And the most powerful thing you can do is just simply say, I'm not moved, I'm not intimidated, this is not my conversation, I'm not interested, I've moved on with my life.
Yeah.
Another thing that really concerned me about the way the conversation about the Shelley Olandria Huda thing was happening, and this was just a general trend across this reunion, is that most of the people this season have not watched back their season. And as this has been the most popular season of the show ever, most popular season of Love Island full stop in the world, they have humongous fan bases that have communities on Twitter and Reddit subs, and they are gigantic. And they now exist in a parasocial ecosystem where the fans are feeding them what they think they should feel about what someone did to them. It's a very, very, very dangerous situation to get yourself into, where you are going off what someone who has proclaimed themselves to be a fan of stand-up you believes you should feel, rather than objectively how you feel, and rather than the objective truth of how it was presented to the public.
Yeah.
Then you are allowing yourself fall into very dangerous delusions of grandeur and toxic stan beefs that doesn't end well. It reminds me of the female rap beefs that half of them come from, oh, my fan base told me you said this. Oh, but I never said that. I think your fan base is just beefing with this other fan base. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on? These are reality TV contestants. Why are you guys referring to your stans? Why are you saying, oh, I wanted you to give a statement to your stans? I wanted you to give a statement to your stans. No, my fan base told me this. Well, my fan base told me that. It's like, what's going on? Isn't the pretense supposed to be you guys came on the show to come and find love during the summer? When did it turn into brand deal versus brand deal, stan base versus stan base? This is a recipe for a lot of mental health disaster in the next couple of seasons of this show.
Now we're going to do trailer watch, where we live react to a trailer for an upcoming film or TV show we're interested in. That's it. Okay.
Sat seated, balanced.
Not me.
You're not excited. You're not feeling it. You're not feeling the bodice ripping, corset tearing, salt burn of it all.
But you know that I'm not a romance girly. Also, it gave me nothing. Now, don't get me wrong, I hate trailers that reveal too much, but this gave me exactly nothing apart from cool set design. It almost looked like a perfume ad.
Well, that's Emerald Fennell's work, yes. A lot of Saltburn also felt like fashion photography to me. And interior design, advertising. Yes.
Like, I feel like Saltburn gave me a bit more grit. This feels almost a bit too whimsical for me. I doubt I will like this movie, frankly.
I suppose though Saltburn was an original story, whereas Wuthering Heights is her reimagining a classic Emily Bronte novel, I guess. Now, people on the internet are hella mad at this trailer because they feel like it's corrupting the classic literature. Why are we hearing Charlie XCX on top of it? Why is she wearing sunglasses? I love everything about it, actually. Like, I'm really, really, really excited. I think it's because I like Margot Robbie a lot. And Jacob Elordi, I don't take him too seriously, but I think he and Margot's chemistry is going to be interesting to watch, especially because she is a bit older than him, and I prefer to see the dynamic where it's not just like the 21-year-old girls and the 35-year-old men all the time.
Although I do like Margot Robbie, I doubt that based on what I've seen, that this movie or this role will actually give her anything else to offer us that we haven't seen before from her.
You don't think we'll demand much of her?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, fair enough. Well, there was lots of drama over the wedding dress outfit. I guess it's something classic from a classic scene from the book. they felt like it looked too contemporary. I think that
Mm.
shot looks beautiful. There was also a lot of drama about Jacob Elordi's casting as Heathcliff because a lot of people interpret Heathcliff in the book to be a man of color.
Oh,
A
okay.
lot of people either interpret him to be like a South Asian person or a dark skinned, like biracial person or something like that. He's only ever been played by white men on in adaptations, but like when this film was announced, a lot of people were pushing for or hoping that finally we would get an adaptation where they cast a non-white man, and then they went with Jacob Elordi. So
Yeah, I think that's probably part of the reason why I'm not interested based on this trailer. It just looks very no shade white, very whimsical, very hot girl, hot guy, and probably
and
the re-
wig.
but yeah, but also probably the romance will be heavily dependent on their looks and not necessarily the acting. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Thanks for going deep with us. Like us on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you're streaming this from.